you want a belly rub? Don't you want a belly rub? I'll go get Rue to get a belly rub. There ain't no more peanuts. You're a peanut. You're a peanut. Lay down. Lay down, peanut.
Rowdy Girl is a cow. Rowdy Girl was a little bouncing little calf that just stole my heart. You know, she'd come running at me twice a day when I go to feed her. She was seriously rowdy. That's how she got her name. I mean, she just kicked her heels and, you know, and so I right out of the hat, I said, you know, that's a little rowdy girl. I started seeing, when I'd walk outside, this used to be a cattle ranch, and when I'd walk outside, it was a cattle ranch at the time, but I was seeing a sanctuary. And it was as if all I had to do was change the way I looked at things. And as soon as I started looking at things as a sanctuary, I started bringing it into focus. Well, people contact me and ask me all the time what they need to do to start a sanctuary. And it depends on where you live. It depends on what kind of resources you've got. It depends on your talents. Depends on the people that are in your sphere of influence that care about you and maybe can help you.
You don't want to start a sanctuary until you investigate several other sanctuaries, get your funding ready. Anybody that gets into this business of running a sanctuary better be very careful, because it takes a lot of money to take proper care of animals as they reach their elder years. Your typical rancher, when they have a problem with a cow, they just sell it. Get rid of your problems. That's the philosophy. But a sanctuary takes care of them until the day they die and has no problem with spending thousands of dollars on an individual, because they are individuals now.
We have a horse rescue and sanctuary. We started in 2005. Started out helping another rescue, just took in a couple of horses, and then realized that there's a great need. We started out just wanting the older horses that nobody wanted, but we've had them born here. We've adopted out about 300 horses over the years. We try not to keep them, but there are some. We have about 15 that are over 25 years old. So unless somebody really wants a companion horse, they'll stay with us the rest of their lives. I would recommend working with another rescue, because you're going to get underwater very quickly if you don't have any money. Well, they need a facility. If they're going to do it out of their home, they have to realize there's only so much they can do. If they lease or borrow facilities, they have to be very careful, because I've seen some of them, the owner decides to sell the building. Then they've got a ton of animals with no place to go and 30 days to go there. So they really have to be sure that their facilities are locked in, or that they know their limitations if it's just going to be a backyard rescue.
If I received a call from an individual or a group that wanted to start a rescue organization, what I would do before I gave them any advice or suggestion is to ask them specific questions. You know, for example, what are your plans? What rescue animals are you going to do? How are you going to fund it? You know, how are you going to treat the animals? Before creating an organization, there has to be a lot of planning, because without planning, you can't get started. You have to determine, you know, what type of rescue you're going to be doing. If you're going to be doing dogs, like we're doing pug dogs, we decided we're going to do pug dogs and pug dogs only, and then what we needed to do is determine how we were going to implement the plan. How are you going to feed the animals? Who's going to pay for the food? How are they going to be fostered? How many volunteers do you have? What are your plans if you lose a volunteer? You have to prepare for the worst because it will happen. What are you going to do when you run out of money? How are you going to pay your vets? How are you going to pay your taxes? How are you going to file your forms? Do you have a CPA that you work with? Do you have an attorney that you work with? So that's what I meant before you even start. You lay out all of the plans, and then you lay out an exit plan or a contingency plan if the first one doesn't work out.
The primary item in any of this conversation is money. If you don't have the funding, then you can't even begin to go down this road. So funding and continued funding is always the biggest challenge for anyone doing this. Once you have that under control and you have to have a facility, a place, and you can start off very small. We started off with nothing and have grown now to a fairly substantial operation.
I have a little bird.
These are 1974 model classrooms, so everything is repurposed, which is kind of an interesting twist to the whole thing. But there again, it's saving money any place we can. This is run on bare bones, and we have that pretty much down to a science at this point.
Thank you.
You'll make it just fine.
Okay, great. Yay.
You either spend your own money, which most people have a very limited supply of that, and they can do it for a very short period of time. But a lot of it, and even when you do have some revenue, you do end up having to tap into your own resources fairly frequently, which is why most people don't last very long at doing this, or can't even begin to go down that road, or do it on such a small scale out of their home, because it's very expensive to do this, and there is no money in it. None. There's very few grants for rehab. There's quite a bit available for education. If you're depending on donations, you will be severely disappointed. There's never enough. And even when you do have funds, there's never enough. It's a continuing, that's the hardest thing I have to do, is try to stay in front of the fundraising. And it's very difficult.
Don't start till you definitely have everything in place, because if you do, and then as it starts to grow, it can grow very quickly, and if you're not prepared for it, that's a big reason why a lot of them do not work. But money is definitely going to be the most difficult part starting off, because if you don't have enough to start the funding yourself, you have to be able to find it. No, it definitely takes money, and a lot of times it actually is coming out of pocket for whoever is starting the rescue. And with horses, it's very important, because you have to look at a lot of different things. Not only do you have to look at how much you have to pay for the horse to be safe, you have to look at transportation, which is very expensive. It can be a couple $100 up to $1,000 or more, depending on how far away they are. You have to look at dental work, hoof work, everything. You have to have a vet in place. A lot of times when they come to us, they're sick, so we have to have that prepared for.
Divine Equine is a therapeutic riding center for the disabled community. What we do is the children or the adults and the veterans come to us to learn how to ride and learn horsemanship, and also to have socialization skills. You have to have a game plan. You have to have a budget. I've learned that the hard way for not having a budget when I started out. And in order to have things work, you have to know how much everything's going to cost ahead of time. Because if you don't, then you're going to be stuck with, I got to close. I can't keep going. Well, you have to determine how much it's going to cost to have a horse. For one of our horses, we need $6,000 a year for one horse. That's a healthy horse. That's not a horse that has any diseases or any afflictions at all. They're just basic, easy keepers. Because vet bills are so expensive, so you need to talk to your vet to see if they can give you anything, whether it's medication at a discount or their services at a major discount, and if they don't mind coming out at night to help you with a sick animal and not charge you an arm and a leg to help you take care of that animal.
I think we need to start with just the very basic, and it doesn't even have to do on taking on multiple dogs. It could just be one dog. If you are going to decide that you are going to adopt one dog, what is that one dog going to require? That dog is going to require love, a place to be. He's going to need financially, he's going to need to be vetted. He's going to need the socialization skills. And I think that just perpetuates from there. So if you decide to take on 5 dogs, do you have the love? Do you have the space? Do you have the financial means in order to care for that dog for the duration of their life? In rescue, you may have a dog that you rescued that you may only have for a week or 2, or you may have them 5 years from now, which we have had that in our rescue. But the difference is I think you should never take on any more than you can handle, no matter how much your heartstrings are pulling at you. When we bring each dog in, it's with the understanding they may be here for the rest of their life until we can find their forever home. So we don't take on any more than what we can afford, not only emotionally, but financially as well. You have to be able to willing to dedicate all the time that this animal is going to need. You never know when you get up in the morning, you may have a sick dog. There has to be flexibility within the work schedule, or you have to have a support system. If you're going to go on a vacation, I mean, it takes an act of Congress for us in order to go, because somebody has to stay in the house, because we never know what's going to happen.
So when you're starting off, expect a lot of hard work, a lot of education, a lot of research, a lot of time, and be willing to give back. Don't just be a taker. You have to be a giver at the same time. If you're going into horse rescue, horses live a long time. So you can't say, I'm going to rescue 30 horses and then say, in 10 years, I plan to be a ski instructor in Colorado. Are you going to rescue just horses? Are you going to rescue dogs? Or, how many, kind of get it on paper what your dream is or what your goal is prior to even starting. Because if you don't keep that in the back of your mind at all times, it's easy to find yourself down the road in a completely different path and not sure how you got there. When you're first starting, go get involved with the local rescue and see what they do every day. What does it take? What are the heartaches? What are the joys, the celebrations? What do you see that they may be doing wrong? What do you see that they're doing right? And then when you start your own, you'll have a better understanding of the full scope.
Please go and get yourself educated. Make sure that you know how to take care of these animals. Make sure you know the needs, the ins, the outs of what this is going to take. Now, if it's dogs, it's different. If it's a cat, it's different. But make sure that you have the knowledge before you take this creature into your care so that it has the healthy, happy life that you're trying to give it. Find other rescues. There are lots of great organizations already in place that rescue anywhere from horses to pigs to dogs and cats. There's a bird sanctuary, there's everything. Go and spend hours figuring out what you're passionate about. Because if you don't find something that speaks to your heart, you're not going to stay in it for the long run, and that's not fair to the animals. The biggest thing that we try to do here is education. Making sure that people are open to education.
Yes, you need the mission statement. You need what direction you want to go in. But the startup funds that are required can be incredible. You really need to be very realistic about what cash you have on hand, what donations you can get easily, if it's friends or family, something like that. Also, if you can possibly start building kind of a war chest that you can possibly purchase your own property. But that's difficult to do because you're very limited with your funds, and everything has to go back to everything's going to the care of the animals, and usually there's not a whole lot left over. So, but building relationships with other property owners, other ranchers, so that they can say, hey, yeah, the worst happened, we can step in, we can help you out, and you can move over onto a space that I've got.
Many well-intentioned people who love animals want to start a rescue or sanctuary. It's not that easy. You have to really put a lot of thought into it, but what you need is you've got to have a financial plan to support it.
You have to have a business plan going in. A lot of people who love animals and want to just start a rescue, they don't understand. You just can't go out there half-cocked.
You have to have a business plan. You have to come up with an annual budget. You know, what do you want to accomplish? But first of all, the most important thing, you've got to get the right team together. Now, what do I mean by the right team? A team of financial backers. You have to have the money. Money makes the world go round. And all your good intentions will not work unless you have the financial support to make it work.
You have to get like-minded people in the community who buy into the idea of a no-kill rescue, a sanctuary for healing to help these animals who cannot help themselves. You've got to secure volunteers, again, who are like-minded, who believe in your vision and mission for a no-kill facility. So the right team.
This should be a community endeavor, and you want to get folks with talent, with a little bit here, maybe a CPA over here, and a veterinarian over here. So you want to get a broad base of talent to call on, because you want to get as much donated as possible, especially if you're just starting out. You don't have a lot of money. So you want to get these folks who are willing to give their talent, their time, and write those checks.
Actually, we pick every animal at the shelter. Every single animal at the Euless shelter we sponsor. So we get everything. We don't turn anything down. If it's at the Euless shelter, we take it. And so we kind of got the word out of the school, made some announcements, got the group started, and we started going one night a week to the shelter. And ever since then, we've gone one night a week, every week to the shelter. So we take the elderly, we take the ones that are sick, we take the ones that are injured, just anything that comes in there. We get them out of there on the internet and get them adopted. We sort of feel like the shelter is our facility, because we work out of there, and then we can house the dogs there, and if then need be, we move them, to the mutt shack, or we also have, we move them to fosters.
Well, I think that an animal rescue could very easily pair with local farms. So we're kind of rural, but we're kind of urban. We're only 35 minutes from downtown Dallas, and I think that the ability to find passionate people in urban areas for animal rescues and for sustainable farms is really, really easy. At least we found a pretty easy time of it, and my friends that are urban farmers have had the same experience. And I think that those, the two kind of go hand in hand. You've got farm animals and you've got rescue animals, and if you've got a little bit of land to farm on, it makes sense where you could kind of set aside some of those areas for that kind of, that kind of endeavor. So if someone came to me for guidance, what I would do first off is I would tell them to find somebody in their community that's doing something like they want to do, and go and volunteer their time. It's the easiest thing you can do is go see what is somebody else doing, and go find an animal sanctuary, go find the wildlife rescue, and just say, hey, I'm here, I'd love to volunteer, and almost never will they turn you away. Free labor is great, and that's a big opportunity, is to be able to go and learn from other people that are already doing it, and then you can figure out what are the things that they're doing that are working, and what are the things they're doing that are not working, and how could you improve upon those. And you may find that you get just as much satisfaction by volunteering somewhere else, or you may find that what they're doing, their whole model, doesn't work, and this is how you're going to improve it at your location. Found Microfarms was created about 3.5 years ago, and it was really to make a profound impact on our local food economies. So we were really interested in where food came from and what's in our food, and we, with a couple of young daughters at home and some health issues that we were worried about, it was really important to us to figure out where do we get clean and fresh food, and then we realized that was a problem for everybody. And how we could impact that is looking at how do we grow fresh, natural foods, and then what markets are available to sell them to, and out of that we figured out what kind of systems make the most amount of sense so we can do year-round reliable growing for local chefs.
If somebody was going to start a sanctuary, number one, you need to own your land. If you don't own your land, you are going to have problems, because at any time somebody could take your land away from you. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, is they try to do it on leased land or somebody else's land, and money, a business plan, a marketing plan. How are you gonna make money? One of the things that you got to know is your strengths. I mean, I always tell people, what are you good at? You got to figure out a way to make income. It's not that you can't do it with a loan, because you can, but you got to make sure you can pay for it, and you got the solvency to do that. But owning your own land.
And I support people starting sanctuaries all over the United States, and they have, but you just got to be very careful about it. You can have a micro sanctuary in your own home, your own little piece of land. Just be very careful you don't overdo it. You've got to have the ability to pay for what you're doing if you're going to take care of them yourself and not ask for donations. If you're going to ask for donations, you need to have a business plan and become a charity, 501c3. If you do that, and you want very many donations, you better have a business plan that tells you how you're going to get them, because they're not easy. There's a lot of competition out there.
First of all, before they start it, they need to be sure their family's on board. I know people who've gotten divorced because of the expense and the inconvenience. You can't just take up and go out of town anytime you want to. If people don't donate, you've still got to feed the animals. So family has to be on board 100%. Then they need to be sure they have the proper facilities for what they want to do, and realize that this is a long-term commitment, because you might be like us that get a fairly young horse that's not adoptable. What's going to happen to that horse in 10 years? So you have to think about that. With horses, which is all I do, horses, donkeys, and mules, we have to have adequate fencing, adequate shelter, know a basic first aid, because sometimes the vet can't get there, know what medications to have on hand. So that's the basics.
I have seen so many people that are so enthusiastic about starting a rescue organization, and they get out there and do it without realizing the magnitude, the work, and the amount of money it takes. and then they're bankrupt and the organization closes down within the matter of months. The other thing you need to do is you need to check with the municipalities. What are the rules of the municipalities? If you're going to foster in homes, how many pugs can you have in a home? Is there an exemption to the number of animals you can have in the house? And usually if you're in rescue, you notify the municipality and they'll say, okay, you can put up to X number of animals in your facility only for a limited period of time.
It's hard. It's 24/7. You give your life up to it. And not many people are willing to make that kind of a sacrifice where you just turn your life over to this. And it's emotionally gut-wrenching, it's physically exhausting, and there's a whole lot more to it than releasing the bird, which is what everybody kind of has in their head when they come to volunteer is release the bird. There's so much more that goes before you ever get to that. This is the only rehab center in North Texas that takes all species of birds. So we get almost 5,000 a year come through here. And the other thing I would say about a sanctuary or a rehab center is you have to have a dedicated team of people willing to make the same sacrifices that you make, or it doesn't work. A lot of it is trial and error, and you find out what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of it is, I could publish a heck of a manual right now on what to do and don't do, and save people a whole lot of time and money and effort.
Some people work out of their homes and try and do the rescue that way. Others, like myself, it's through my office setting. And so if you have it planned out beforehand, and like I did, I knew everything ahead of time that I was going to have this facility in mind before actually taking any Mustangs in. Our first Mustang that we got actually came to us because somebody saw that I had sent a post out about this Mustang that was at a local kill pen, and somebody reached out and said that they would purchase the horse if we could take it. We didn't have our fencing or barn up just yet. We were in the process of getting it done, but it was still several weeks out. So we had to find a trainer that was willing to work with us and was able to take her in, and that was our very first rescue. And she's actually still with us. She's a permanent resident for us. And it's something that everything kind of lined up for us, but we got very fortunate. We really should not have accepted anything before we had everything in place, but we had the support system to help make sure that it was taken care of.
Well, you'd have to determine if you want it for profit or nonprofit, and then you'd have to have a game plan. You'd have to have structure on paper to lead you in the steps that you need to take. You'd need an attorney, you would need a board. You would need to know that you could reach out into your community, become part of the Chamber of Commerce, let them know who you are and what you're going to do, get to know the people around you. The money from the therapy center pays for the food, but it doesn't pay for all of the food and all of the maintenance that is required with having a rescue animal, because rescue animals have vet bills. And vet bills are expensive, especially when you're looking at equine. Equine rescue is a very expensive rescue. You have to have things in place, because to have a horse get sick, it can cost within 2 hours $300. And within 24 hours, you're at $1,000. So you have to have a game plan is how much money are you going to be able to put out for this animal?
First, I would tell them to go find a rescue center and help them from ground zero. Learn the ins, the outs of what it takes to run a center before you open a center. Get personal training. See what it takes.
The first would be what their living environment would be. We would never encourage somebody that's in an apartment to go into rescue, because your dog is going to be kenneled or crated at all times. So I think spacing, that's a huge issue. We started small, and then as we started on 1 acre, and I believe we had 12 dogs on 1 acre, then we moved to 3 acres, and then my husband, he says, what is our magic number? What is going to be the number? This is before we actually had our nonprofit status, and I said 24. So we ended up having 24 dogs on the 3 acres. Invisible fence, secure area as well. They all get to be able to come in the house at certain times, although we don't allow our dogs to run free through our home. And as we place each and every one of our dogs, I pray for each dog. We say no a lot at this rescue. Somebody may come and want to adopt from us, and we do say no if we don't feel like it's going to be the right fit for that dog, because our number one commitment is for the dog. It doesn't mean that it's a bad person. It's just not meant for that particular dog that they're interested in.
You know, am I going to be a rescue? Am I going to be a sanctuary? Am I going to offer both? And then be realistic about where you see yourself in this whole process. You know, this is not a game. Lives are depending on it. You know, really think about your aspirations, your needs, what you want out of life before you do this. Because it is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job. You as a rescue, as an organization, a charity, have to, again, say, what is it I want to spend my time on? Being stuck in the office is really hard. I mean, if you're an animal lover and you start a rescue, what do you want to be doing? I want to be out there playing with the horses. I want to be grooming. I want to be doing all the things that all the volunteers that are new want to do. Well, it doesn't work that way. Someone's got to do the paperwork. Someone's got to do the calls. Someone's got to do the emails. They've got to do the follow-up. Apprentice, volunteer, get involved with an existing rescue and really pay attention. Go in with your eyes open. Don't take anything for granted. I mean, so many people say, oh, I can do it better. I have better ideas. That's great. I really hope that they can. It's a lot of dirty, hard work. It's a lot of long nights. It's a lot of heartbreak. But on the flip side, I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, I gave up an amazing career for this, but I never would go back.
Animal care is something that requires time. It requires a lot of effort. Speaking specifically about horses, the barns have to be cleaned, the water troughs have to be filled every day, the hay has to be put out, they have to be fed. You know, you can't take that lifestyle of being out all the time because they need you. You know, you have to be ready to give the time commitment. They need to be willing to get the knowledge if they don't have it. And the other thing is, if you don't have the knowledge, make sure you have someone in place who does to teach you.
Whatever you have, double it or triple it, whatever type of estimate you make, and going from there, understanding that it's a real struggle to get donations in, public funds in. So you really need to be realistic about what you need as far as funds are concerned.
So you've got to get your game plan. And then once you have that business plan, your financial budget, then you go and you talk to people that you know in the community who love animals. And you really have to sell them, you have to sell yourself to them. That this is what you need and this is why you need their help. You know, and you have to understand too that you cannot save the world. You've got to decide, you know, what your objectives are. Are you going to be a sanctuary or a rescue? Now here at Fuzzy Friends Rescue, we don't want to be a sanctuary. We want to be a rescue. We want to save as many lives as possible. We want to get them in, get them out to great homes. It's very, very hard, and many people burn out when they try to be a super person. You need to get a strong board, and like I said, you need to get people who love animals, who believe in what you're trying to accomplish here.
We have such wonderful posters and group of community people that we get a lot of them adopted off the internet. The social media and the internet has been wonderful to us to get we use all the adoption sites, Pet Finder, or several. We also have, we moved them to fosters. We have a wonderful fostering program, great fosters that they are part of our group. They're I think the heart of our group because they save pets. And so we have probably a dozen fosters for dogs, probably as many cat fosters. And so they come to the shelter and they find a dog that's their fit. And so that's also so that we get the dog into a home. And when the dog is in a home, we find out that they get adopted very quickly because then they're able to be socialized. We know their potty habits, if they can kennel train them. Our fosters are wonderful.
So with any business, my advice for people is to find other people that have the same passions. When you find somebody else that's just as passionate about animal sanctuaries or aquaponics or anything like that, they're going to be driven to help you in your mission once you've shared it with them. So if you find that if you want to do the animal sanctuary, so where are other people in your community that have similar goals and similar passions, and go find those people. And then specifically, who are the people that can help you fund it? So there might be a club or a group of people that meet on some kind of regular basis that talk about problems with environmentalism, cleaning up the community, or community gardens, or go start going to every meeting you can go to and talk to everybody about what you're passionate about. The advice I would give to somebody who said, like, I have no money, but so first off, I would say, can you afford the monthly payment? So if you have no money at all, I personally would want a little bit of reserves before I look at buying a land. If you have zero money, then I would look at who could you partner with that has land, and then enroll them in your vision and get them to either donate the land to you or rent it to you, or figuring out something like that that'd be a little bit more sustainable. I probably wouldn't recommend buying a piece of property if you don't have any money at all, because there's going to be things like property taxes and insurance and stuff that's going to pop up you didn't think about when you own the land. So with no money, I would say find people that are share a similar mission and values that you do, and enroll them in your vision, and then tell them what you need. My guess would be is that there's going to be a lot more animals coming to you before you're actually making money than the other way around. So I would probably look at anytime there's an opportunity to take in an animal is to figure out what is your cost going to be to maintain that animal. So do you need to build new fences, and are you going to need money for that? What is the feed cost for this particular animal?
You got to be able to get volunteers. You got to be able to do a lot on your own. And when we first started, it was just me and Tommy doing everything. And then as you grow, you have to be able to delegate, because your organization is growing. And we didn't always have this office. My office was in the house, in my kitchen. And as the organization's grown, you have to know when to step across that threshold. You can't, you'll hold your organization back if you stay small.
Go visit 5 or 6 sanctuaries before you even think about starting one. I think that's generally what he told her. And several other people recommended that she go around and look at a lot of different sanctuaries before she attempted to start one.
Make a long-term plan and set limits. When we first started, we were on 12 acres. At one point, we had 50 horses on 12 acres. That is not fair to the horse, it's not fair to the land or the people. So we had to set a limit. Here's how many we can have based on what our resources are. And that's really hard to do because there's so many needs out there. But being able to set limits is an important thing. Emotionally, we've had a lot of tears when we have to put one down or one doesn't make it. So it can be emotionally taxing no matter what the animal is. And if you love them and you train them and then somebody adopts them, again, it's an emotional, because you feel like you're losing one of your children that you put so much time and effort into. So when I started, I wasn't sure about doing this because I knew it could put us in the poorhouse. And I thought, well, I either need to not do it, and when I get old, I'll be on my rocking chair wishing I had, or I'll be in the poorhouse glad that I did it. So you have to make the decision, am I willing to make the sacrifices to give it a chance?
If I had to start DFW Pug Rescue all over again, and I had the option of doing a sanctuary or doing it home base like we're doing right now, I would prefer to do the sanctuary. Let me explain why. Number one, you have everything under control in one facility. Right now, we have foster homes across the Metroplex, and we have to coordinate with the different foster homes. Number two, keeping animals in a foster home for long periods of time becomes a challenge. So if we had a sanctuary, we wouldn't have to worry about that. Now we do have a lot of hospice pugs, which means that they'll never leave the organization because they have to have a place to live out their lives. If we had a sanctuary, that would really work out really good for us. The other thing is we could keep all of our supplies in a central location. We could keep all our medications in a central location, and we could have our fosters, administer the medication, feed the dogs, play with them, keep them healthy, all in one location without having to worry about the different foster homes. We do have situations every once in a while where we lose touch of the foster homes, and then we have to go look for our pug. So if we had a sanctuary, we would be accountable. We'd know where all of our pugs are.
Projections are a little tricky because once you start accepting creatures, if you're flooded, which usually is what happens because there's not enough people to go around, your projections kind of go out the window. So unless you have projected way on the high end, which that's kind of unrealistic really, you can get yourself in a pickle in a hurry, unintentionally. You can blow through $5,000 a month. And then what are you going to do? You have all of these creatures you've taken in, and you've got nothing. And it's just been there, done that several times. And it's hard. It's really, really hard because your heart gets ahead of your checkbook. And you take in things, and because there's such a need, it's just a huge need.
The finances, and when it comes to rescue, one of the easiest things is finding the money to pay for the horse that's in need. What's not easy is finding the money for everything else that comes up with wormer and hooves and dental work and all the other things that come along with it. It's been a lot out of pocket up front, but we went into it knowing that, so we were prepared for it. But it's the little stuff that keeps coming up, and of course you can't just keep putting all of your own money into it at the same time. That's where the fundraising comes in and getting some kind of grant sometimes.
Our group is called Dallas Cat Lady. Well, there's a lot of groups out there that incorporate a humane society to the name or an SPCA to their name. And I wanted to be a little bit different, and I wanted to reflect that we're Dallas based and that we're all, not crazy cat ladies, but we are. But I didn't want to say crazy cat lady, and I thought Dallas Cat Lady would kind of give us that regional feel so that people would find us. And then, primarily our volunteers are women, so we're cat ladies. Everything that we take in for the adoption fees, we keep our adoption fee pretty lean, so we're paying for the cost of the spay neuter, the shots, and the upkeep of the kitties until they get adopted, but there's no fat in there anywhere even today when we're taking in more money. It's more money coming in means that we can help more cats, so it goes out as fast as it comes in. I think last year we had a carryover of about $1,000 for the first time ever, but usually there's the deficit that comes out of my pocket, so probably $300,000 over the years out of my pocket between the insurance money, the 401k, and filling in the gaps when needed. I'd probably be living in a big old house in the country if I hadn't spent all my money on the cats, but there you go, I can't not do it.
Infrastructure is real important. You got to know what kind of animals you want to have on your sanctuary, and you got to make sure you have the proper, bunks, housing. You got to have the right roads. And I don't mean just roads one time. You've got to be able to haul in sand, rock, gravel. You got to have irrigation.
And do not overdo it, because there are so many animals out there that need help. There are so many people out there that run into situations that the animals are going to die if you don't take them. And you can't take all the animals. It has been the hardest thing that I can think of ever doing in my life.
Well, people have to get references. They get one from their veterinarian, a horse professional, and a friend. We inspect their property and make sure that they really have a place that they can keep a horse, and we try to explain to them that this is a long-term commitment and quite a financial commitment to a horse. And a lot of people do it. We are run by volunteers, so our volunteers help check out the property, help do follow-up, help train the horses, because the better trained they are, the more adoptable they are. The basics are about $100 a month. And then they need to have some set aside if there's an emergency vet bill. The 100 would include the annual shots and Coggins test, stuff like that, and their feed and hay. That's if they have their own property.
The other thing you need to do is you also need to find vet clinics that will work with you. And that's a challenge because we've seen so many rescue organizations that don't pay their bills, so vet clinics are resistant to working with them. Then once you identify the vet clinic, you have to find out if they specialize in the breed that you're in. Because we discovered that in the pug breed, it's very specialized, and not all vet clinics, work that way.
Now, if you have a good sense about it, you won't take in more than you have the facilities to house. Unfortunately, I'm not of that mind, and I've never turned a bird away, ever. When we're sealing the floor with kennels, carriers, whatever, there's always room for one more somewhere. And with that in mind, you sometimes get a bit overwhelmed, to say the least. However, it's always worked out fine because I have an incredible staff of people that are used to dealing with my idiosyncrasies, shall we say.
So you really have to weigh it out, because the money that you invest in a sick horse could also be helping other horses. So you have to have some sort of limitation that you're willing to do. And that can be very difficult when the emotional side takes over, which most rescuers are very emotional when it comes to their animals they're helping.
I'm so jealous sometimes when I drive past the fun places and I see people over there, and I know I am not the rule. A lot of my volunteers have more of a life than I have. But yes, if you're going to run the rescue and own the rescue, then you have to be willing and able to make some sacrifices. I work a full-time job, and then I call my rescue business my other two jobs.
If you have a horse, you have to think of, okay, if I'm going to hay the horse or if I'm going to let him graze. One horse requires 2 acres. So we have 14 horses with 20 acres, so we have a lot of hay. we have to seek out feed because otherwise the horses will graze it to nothing. So you have to be prepared to have that emergency backup. What do I do if? And if I do, how will I continue? Because this is the route I'm going. Because once they start coming, you can't get rid of them. You fall in love with them.
You have to kind of step back and think of the what ifs. Do you really want to have a dog that's going to need medical attention that you're not going to be able to meet that dog's needs? I don't think that's a true rescue. A true rescue has always got to have a backup plan. You have to be able to have the resources in order to meet each dog's needs or each animal's needs. It could be a cat, it could be one of the cows. You can't just rely, faith is important, but you have to be able to sustain that portion of it. I mean, it is very costly in order to do rescue, but we're blessed. I mean, we are blessed beyond measure out here. We're going through about 600 pounds of dog food a month that I actually purchase. All of our dogs are on heartworm and on flea prevention that they get every single month. We never miss. They're all fully vaccinated. They're all microchipped. They all get their nails done the first of every month, so I have everybody on a spreadsheet. So there's a lot of expense that goes into it, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of reward that goes into it because the unconditional love that's there.
It's the same concept whether it's a for-profit or a non-profit. Everything you do every single day is about relationships. You must build relationships. Every single person you meet, you don't know who they are, who they will be, who they're connected with. So take the time to build a relationship and nurture those relationships.
In the beginning, when I started Fuzzy Friends Rescue, I thought we could save the world. Well, you can't. And I took every single dog and cat that came our way until we were full. And we had some animals, some dogs for 5 and 6 years.
I often think that with vet bills and pets coming in need and emergencies that it's so easy to go into the red. And we honestly have been very blessed when we have an emergency case or we get in, difficulty, we can reach out to our supporters and they've always come through for us.
And I also wouldn't be afraid to ask everybody that I know or everybody that I meet for what I need. So if what I need is land, I'm going to ask the gas station attendant when I'm filling up my tank, hey, do you know anybody around that's selling, land? I'm looking for some acreage. Or if I go to a feed store, hey, do you guys ever have feed that's about to expire that you're getting rid of so I can help feed my animals? So how we bought our farm is we used owner finance. So I basically went to the people that own the property and I told them what our passion was. And I just explained, hey, we want to create a, growing systems. We want to supply local restaurants. We want to teach kids about food and where it comes from and do a lot of training classes and education. And in order to do that, because I was a small business owner, it was very difficult to get a loan. In order to do that, this is what we had available for a little bit of a down payment. And we'd like to owner finance the rest of it from you.
We got a board of directors that is awesome. You got to have a good board of directors, not just your mom and your dad, your cousins. You got to have people that can do stuff, either make money for you, fundraise, people that know people that have money. You got to have money, and you can't be scared to talk about it. A lot of people are scared to talk about money. You got to have it. These animals depend on you to not be scared to ask for money, and that's real important.
One thing that I would highly recommend for people that are thinking about starting a sanctuary is to get the GFAS rules and regulations. It's Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries.
A good board of directors is good to have because they are the ones that can help you say no. Because it's very hard to say no when you're looking at an animal that's starving, but when your board can say, we can't afford to feed another one, or that's too much for us as far as ability to care for. I find it much better to handpick them, know their background, know what their passion is. We've had people come in and want to be on our board, and what they really wanted to do was take over, tell us how to run things. And that didn't work out well because our visions were not the same.
We have a team that's responsible for transportation. We have a team that's responsible for intake. We have a team that's responsible for events. We have one for fostering, one for adoptions, one for filing the paperwork. So what we did is we created this organization with directors, and each director has responsibility.
That's another consideration. You can usually get people to be on your board, however, that might not be the best choice. The people I have on my board, I know personally, and they obviously know me. I've known them for 20 years plus, all of them. And it's very important that you don't have somebody that's gonna, I don't know how to say it, not rein you in, but change your direction, which is possible if you have, the cards stacked against you. I mean, they can actually vote you out. So, even though that probably won't happen, you still have to be mindful of that.
If you wind up with people that are on the board that don't agree, it makes it really hard to be able to do things. So when you're looking at rescue, one of the hardest parts is being able to agree in a timely manner on which, for example, for us, which Mustangs can be accepted into the program. Because if you have a whole lot of hoops that you're having to jump through, you don't have enough time when it comes to this type of rescue. Other rescues may be different, but I know with the horse industry and what we do, we have situations like with auction.
And yes, you could spend $15,000 and help that one animal, or you could help 100 animals for that money. And you have to be able to make those decisions when the time comes. And sometimes the only guidance you're going to have at that moment is going to be your heart and your big ability to think of the big picture.
We did it through the board. We had to say 15 acres is for the facility, and the other part is our home and is separate. We had to do a buffer between our personal property and the business. We had to form an LLC as well. And that way everybody stays within their margins. So that's how we work it. Yeah, there's a lot to get started. There's a lot of groundbreaking that you have to do, and I don't mean structures. I mean paper. And you have to have somebody on your board that says, no, you cannot do this. You have 10, you cannot have 11. You have 15, you cannot have 20. And you have to say, I'm sorry, I cannot take in another animal right now. If we have an opening, then we'll be able to help you. But at the moment, our facility is full.
People with common likes, common ground. There's a lot of decent people, and I think when you're in rescue, you have the ability of making so many wonderful, wonderful friends and acquaintances along the way. We've met people that we would have never made contact with had we not gotten into rescue.
You know, there is no way. That's the one thing I always struggle with. People will say, you know, at the end of the year, okay, you're budgeting for the new year, you know, what are your goals? How much do you think you're going to spend on vets? Every time I get that question, I laugh, because I may be fortunate and have a year where not a single illness injury happens. That would be amazing. But can I tell you tomorrow if a horse is going to colic, or a giraffe? Can I tell you if a giraffe's going to sprain its ankle? No, you can't.
And then when you think you've got your projections right, triple it, quadruple it. Unfortunately, with animals, just like people, accidents happen, unexpected illnesses come up. We think that we're in a good place, and then unfortunately somebody crashes a car and you gotta go to the hospital, or unfortunately a horse gets its leg stuck in a fence and you gotta call the vet. It happens. It is a fact of life, and you can never have enough money when you're taking care of something like this, something like an animal rescue.
You always have to be prepared. Preparation is everything with these animals. You have to make sure that you can get them onto into a safe area if you have to. And so absolutely, if you can connect with other ranchers, other property owners that have property that's appropriate for your animal, and that's really important. If somebody says, well, I've got 50 acres but it's not fenced in, then that's not going to be appropriate for you to take your herd and move them over there. So we've been lucky. We do have friendly relationships with ranchers, with people that own property. That's what we can do, but you have to be prepared for it. If you notice, we have a lot of equipment here. We have a lot of halters and lead ropes that we rarely use or never use, but that's got to be on site, because if I have to get a halter on every horse, that's what's going to happen.
Well, I don't believe anyone working full-time can start a rescue, but perhaps I'm wrong. Of course, full-time employed people can certainly be involved, be on the board and help, or if you gather a group of like-minded people, even though they work, if they come together like-minded, they can make it happen. Absolutely they can.
I feel like that, you know, the dog has a better shot at being adopted if it comes from a home, because people then can ask all the questions that often you don't know whether a dog's in boarding or if a dog's at the shelter, the answer to that. So our foster program is a very strong part of Trinity Gap Rescue.
I would look at who is my end buyer going to be, or who's the consumer of products. Because at the end of the day, a sustainable business is only really sustainable if it makes money. So you've got to make enough money to pay for your passions and to pay for the business. And so I would probably start with the farming aspect, just because I know how to make money with that. If you went around and told 100 people a week, I want to start a sustainable animal sanctuary in Dallas, Texas, and you went to find people that were similar as you would inevitably find people that would say, I want to help you, I want to play on your team. That's what we did around aquaponics. I went to all the local aquaponics meetup groups. There was actually a few of them at the time when we got started 4 years ago, and I just made friends because they had the same passions.
Well, when you're looking for a board of directors, you want to look for people with various backgrounds. We have an attorney on our board that used to be with a very well-known farm animal sanctuary in the country, and he knows his stuff. We have somebody on our board that is a celebrity of sorts in the vegan movement. Well, we got two people actually that are. And one of them is, she's got just hundreds of thousands of followers, or they both do. But she's been in journalism, and she knows everybody. And so you got to pick board members based on how they can help your organization, and she loves us. And then we also have a board member that is very good in philanthropy and fundraising and special events and all that.
Cost projections is a very good idea. You have to know what you're going to need to know what you need to raise. So I know what it costs me every week and every month to take care of the horses, and I can look and see if I don't have enough for 2 or 3 months, I'm going to have to say no to who's coming in because I might not have enough to make it through.
If the organization is going to stay small, 1 or 2 individuals can run the organization. If you have plans to grow the organization, then you need to plan in advance on how you're going to grow the organization. For example, we knew that we were going to grow, and we started preparing by creating different silos of responsibilities.
My forte is fixing the birds and getting them back in the air and trying to keep the wheels on this place. My forte is not IT, is not grant writing, it's none of those things. So I have to depend on other people for that, and sometimes we find them and sometimes we don't. That's another consideration. You can usually get people to be on your board, however, that might not be the best choice. The people I have on my board, I know personally, and they obviously know me. I've known them for 20 years plus, all of them. And it's very important that you don't have somebody that's gonna, I don't know how to say it, not rein you in, but change your direction, which is possible if you have, the cards stacked against you. I mean, they can actually vote you out. So, even though that probably won't happen, you still have to be mindful of that.
This next year, that is one thing I want to be able to do more of, is be able to have somebody specific that can help with the art fundraiser. I have colleagues that I work with that have been great around here, being able to fill up water troughs and put out feed and hay, and it's very helpful to have those people in place. That will help you to prevent getting burnout too, is having the right people in place that can help through all of that.
Talk to other people in rescue, there's forums, online forums that you can look up and see what kind of rescue you might be interested in. Maybe it's sugar gliders, maybe it's chinchillas, who knows, or whatever animal makes you happy. I've even met a couple of people that do reptile rescue. I was kind of a little surprised about that, but there's probably a rescue for every type of creature out there. If you don't have one that's near and dear to your heart, then do some research and see where a need exists.
Then you need to start advertising, not by billboards or anything like that, but by word of mouth, or maybe even flyers saying a rescue center is coming to your area, and we will be opening in the next 6 to 12 months. We're going to be taking in whatever type of animal you want to bring in. Like ours is horses. Most of our horses have come to us when people are moving, or they decided they're no longer needed because their grandchildren have grown up and they're old owners and they can't care for the horses.
Our rescue is about each and every animal that's out here and meeting their needs. It's not to glorify us, it's to keep them safe and to give them the life that they deserve.
If you're big or small, you want to have people you trust, people that are there for you, because you're never going to be able to do it alone, ever. You know, unless you have one animal, and even then, that animal can get sick at 2 a.m. So you have to have, you know, plans, backup plans, and more backup plans with people that you trust.
The building is 10,000 square feet and we have 8.5 acres of land. The first thing we did a high fence because we didn't want any of the animals, the dogs outside, if they were to get out of their kennels, to go anywhere. Well, if you can find one that's not being used that you can get donated, we were very fortunate that we got this donated by a very generous supporter, because the building, to buy it, we didn't have the money to buy it.
I want to see dogs that otherwise wouldn't have a chance have a chance. And to see those dogs now have homes, it really makes it worthwhile.
I also find that there's a gigantic interest right now in agritourism. People want to have a connection with food, they want to have a connection with animals, and they want to be able to do that somewhere near where they live, which is in the cities. So if you can have sustainable urban farms, kind of like what we have, and partner that with people that are doing animal rescues, I think it makes a lot of sense, because you can, add on agritourism, either charge for tours to help sustain the animal sanctuary, or simply just help out by placing the animals in better situations than they're in.
I never try to think that I need to do anything on my own, especially when it comes to projections and planning and all of that. You need other minds, other people looking at things, helping you think of things.
At that time, we were kicking around a lot of different things about how to fund the sanctuary during this 3-4 month period. And one of them was to have an organic garden.
They need a good community involvement, and that means really working on your public relations, getting in the newspaper, being on Facebook and internet, going to every club you could think of, because if people know you're there, they will be more likely to help if you get to where you can't do it by yourself.
If I had started out as a sanctuary and I had unlimited funds, where I'd had a barn or land and I had the facilities, it would have made the rescue start a lot easier, because a lot of the recruiting that I did, a lot of the foster homes that I recruited, I wouldn't have to do that. We'd have everything centralized. We could negotiate with the vets where they would come out and visit our animals, treat our animals, where we wouldn't have to go to different vet clinics. Currently, we're working with 6 different vet clinics, and that is a challenge to move one pug from one clinic to the other. It's a challenge to find people to take the animals for the treatment. If we had a sanctuary and we could arrange with the vet visiting us, we could take care of all of that at one time.
We have techniques and things kind of worked out that work really well. We have diets worked out that work really well. Not a lot of what's published I find to be very accurate, frankly. And some of the birds that we do so many of them that we can work out dosages and diets and things like that prove more successful than not.
I think a lot of it is going to be more networking. So let's just say, for example, if somebody comes to me and they have a Mustang that they need to find a home for, I've got people all across the country that may be closer to that person reaching out, that might be able to help them. And so by having that community, we're a whole lot more likely to be successful.
And you have to understand that about rescue, that you're gonna screw up. And that if you screw up bad enough, then the animal dies that you thought you were gonna save. And that's the harsh reality of it. And you're gonna burn out, you're gonna get tired. You're not gonna wanna help, you're not gonna wanna do it anymore.
Are you looking for money gain to have money in your pocket, or are you looking to take care of the animals? What is your ultimate goal? To become rich or not? Because some people look at getting into these rescues that, oh, we'll get funding and we'll get all this money and we'll be able to not to have to work, and that's not the way it is.
So we always say some people golf, some people travel, we dog. That's what we do. There is a sacrifice that's involved with this, but the reward far outweighs the sacrifice at the end of the day, because I don't care how bad your day is or what's happened. When you walk in that door, the love that you get from each and every one of these, they don't judge you. They're just there and they're just happy to see you.
I mean, the friendships, the, you know, sisterhood and brotherhood that, you know, we've formed here, being a part of these animals' lives is the most rewarding and joyous thing. But am I, you know, rich? Not even close.
Will the existing building work the way it is to house animals? If not, then you want to call on your local contractors and builders. Most of them have excess supplies, and many are animal lovers. So go to those guys and ask them to get on board and help you.
We've got this need, we put the dog's picture out there, what the medical needs are, and I think by the grace of God and the wonderful people that support our group, the fact that we are based out of a high school, that is unique. We do have about 30 to 40 girls that are active members.
I've always loved animals, and I just have a connection with them. Playing with them is probably the best part of the day. So. And it's good to like take dogs out and like interact with them and like see how like if they kind of look like shy or like if they look timid, like you take them out and you like play with them, and then they like it's a completely different dog and they really open up, and I just like seeing that with them. So
I post a lot on like my social media about working here just because like the dogs are really cute and like it's fun, and like a lot of people like approach me and ask me about where I work, and then that just kind of like is an opportunity for me to explain everything to them, and I get people that I don't even know asking me about like where I work and if they can apply and stuff like that. So
there's a lot of different problems with our current agricultural method, and we believe that the future of agriculture, of some products, specifically leafy greens, herbs, and that sort of thing, is grown inside of controlled environmental agriculture, so greenhouses. Some indoors, but mostly in greenhouses, we believe is the future of that. So with hydroponics and aquaponics, we have sustainable systems.
You know, whenever he would take them cows up the road in that red trailer, I would just have almost a nervous breakdown, because the mama cows would follow that red trailer all the way out of the driveway, and when it would take the turn to go up Highway 35, those cows would literally in a line take the turn up the fence line and follow that red trailer as far as they could, bellowing for their babies.
In this day and age, there's no reason to kill animals. You can survive. There's a lot of people that are showing that it's healthier. You know, Renee likes to say all the time that as long as people are eating meat, there's going to be wars on this earth. And I can see a correlation with that.
Start networking immediately. In fact, it's even better to start working with another rescue and see what they do and see if this is really what you want to do. A lot of people have come out here to find out if they wanted horses or not, and they work as volunteers. A lot of them bought land and got horses, and a lot of them said, thank God I did this because I'm not going to work this hard.
We would have had to become a nonprofit organization a lot earlier. We would have to have gotten a 501c3 status earlier, This way, we could present to the seller of the property that we were a nonprofit organization, we were registered with the IRS, and possibly either get the land donated to us or sold to us at a reasonable price.
You never know what's coming. I could get a call in a minute that there's 45 ducks that are oiled somewhere that we have to drop what we're doing, saddle up and go get them, and then come back and de-oil 45 ducks, and that takes the whole afternoon. Meanwhile, who's answering the phone? Who's feeding the baby birds? Who's checking in the birds that got me? So I have learned a long time ago that I can have a list of what I want to get done today, and when I drive through the front gate, I throw it out the window because it never, ever, ever works that way.
We have a quarantine pen set up aside from where the other horses will be. Our setup is a little bit different because we have 17 acres total. A lot of it is just field for the horses that are here and out of quarantine. Then we have our quarantine pen, which is set aside because every horse that comes through has to have a 30-day time period where they are completely separate from any of the herd to keep them from getting any of the sicknesses that may come in.
You know, my focus is cats. I see all this stuff about dogs. So yes, find your guardrails of what you're willing and able to do, and be mentally prepared for the fact that you, even with the guardrails, you aren't going to be able to do everything within your guardrails. And you have to mentally get your mindset that we help the ones we can. We help as many of those ones as we can to the best of our ability. And sometimes even then it's not perfect.
You deal with it at the moment, and then afterwards is when you cry or you scream or you go back and figure out what you did wrong to fix it so it won't happen the next time. You have to not blame yourself. You know, I did everything I could. Go through the scenarios. Did I do this? Did I do that? If I had done this? When you have to realize, when the doctor says you did everything you could and there's nothing else we could do for him or her, you have to say it's time and just go with the next one because you have another dog or another horse that needs a home.
It's an interesting way. If you follow us on Facebook, we don't do adoption events and we don't do fundraisers. Somebody did do a fundraiser for us for the first time.
You know, yes, horses are beautiful, magnificent, amazing spiritual creatures, and the connection you can find with a horse is unlike anything. But be realistic.
Yes, it's not that hard to get. Again, find an attorney who believes in your mission, so he'll do it pro bono. Don't pay for it. That's number one. But even animal lovers, when they write that check, they want to know, is it tax deductible? So that's going to help you a lot with your fundraising because they want to know that they can write it off at the end of the year.
Something that needs extra care, extra medication, we will bring it here to Mutt Shack to make sure it gets that. Or if the shelter gets too crowded or we need space, we'll bring it here and board them.
So we grow, I think 36 different types of leafy greens, herbs, microgreens, edible flowers. So we kind of started with lettuce because it was the easiest one to grow and it takes about 35 days from seed to maturity. But we do lots of Swiss chard, onion chives, garlic chives, a lot of nasturtium flowers, marigolds, and just baby collard greens, baby mustards, just a wide variety of different greens, microgreens, and herbs.
You know, it's beyond, you know, emotionally, for me, that was one of my biggest things is, you know, I don't like losing animals. And when you're doing things on a shoestring, you don't always have, and you're brand new at doing something like this, you don't have all the rules. You don't have the playbook on how to do everything.
I know what a struggle it's been for us because we haven't been able to come up with the perfect plan to make money without donations.
And then being willing to sacrifice yourself. You know, I don't get to go out and buy the designer shoes and the fancy jeans because it's more important to me to buy horse feed. And so you have to be willing to say, I'm going to do without something myself.
I have seen so many people that are so enthusiastic about starting a rescue organization, and they get out there and do it without realizing the magnitude, the work, and the amount of money it takes, and then they're bankrupt and the organization closes down within the matter of months.
So if you own the property, that's the best scenario, for sure. Then you can build as you need it, as you have the money to do so, and kind of control it that way.
I have been doing counseling for about 10 years now and work with kids all the way up through adults of any age. And when I started doing it, I knew I wanted to work with animals, and so I had my therapy dog and then the second therapy dog when she came along. But I always have loved horses. I've always had a passion for them. And so when I started doing this, I knew this was the direction that I wanted to go long term. And when I do counseling, sometimes I will take clients out if they are in a certain processing that they're needing to connect with the horses. I have one therapist horse in mind. Her name is Blue. She was rescued about 2 years ago, maybe closer to 3 now. And she has clients that will actually come up to the fence line, and she just pushes into the fence and just stands with them and waits for them to process whatever it is that they need.
Sanctuary means that if nothing goes out, then you can't take any in. So you have to have that game plan. If you're going to be a sanctuary that does adoptions, then you can intake and find homes for some, but you also have a place for the unadoptable, for the feral cat, or for the old cat that's grumpy and nobody wants, other than my house. You have to make that decision on the front end if you're going to be fostering or sheltering / sanctuary. And the reality of sanctuary is that you can only take in so many, because many places that were sanctuaries that got a lot of publicity all of a sudden ended up with way more than they could handle. I mean, we all we hear about those horrible downfalls.
I mean, like overnight we went from 3 riders to 14 riders, and now we're at 40 riders. So you have to figure out, well, okay, I have to have this many animals for this, because we are different than a lot of other sanctuaries. We use the horses that have come to us to give them another job. They're not just going to be thrown to pasture and just wait their life out by grazing the animal.
How this helps me with the training is, once he accepts me as the leader, then when I go into the further training and saddling him and trying to ride him and everything, he understands that I'm working with him as the leader and not as somebody trying to be aggressive to him or trying to cause him harm. And send him off again. Slow it down. Slow it down. He's done pretty good about this. Actually, he's done better than what my domestic horses have done.
I think you ought to have a basis, and let's say initially it's going to cost you $200 to bring that dog in, and let's say that's going to require spade, neutering, vaccinating, heartworm testing, and that's going to give you some heartworm flea prevention for a couple of months, but you don't know what the underlying issue is. If they're heartworm positive, that's a total different course.
So would I love to see more rescues? Absolutely. Do I support people in going into rescue? You bet. But I want them to be cognizant of really what they're going into. So get involved with the rescue. Go out, find someone that you trust or that you just connect with, and then get involved. Go out there, give them your all. Don't just go out there and say, hey, I just want to groom horses, or I just want to ride horses. That's not what they need. They need you to work. So if you're willing to work for them and understand the work, then you're going to be able to work for yourself.
Now for us, we do have some animals we've had here quite a long time, but ideally we would like to get them adopted. I don't want to be a sanctuary, I want to be a rescue. For me, it's a percentage game. I want to get them in, get them out, so we can save more. I want to save as many lives as we possibly can because the need for rescue is so great.
I would say definitely use social media, be proactive. There's a lot of fundraisers out there for pets. There's a lot of wonderful people have stepped up for us. If they know there's a need, that will donate their money to charity, and if it's a legitimate rescue that's really helping the animals, they'll do, they will step up.
We have a craft cocktail program, so we're growing a lot of herbs for craft cocktails. So the market research has been a lot of fun on that one, going out and testing and trying drinks at high-end bars. But there's a lot of different specific things that aren't being serviced there. Now, I don't know that you could make a full living off of working just the craft cocktail market, but it's definitely a fun place to play at. We grow 4 different types of mint that get used in craft cocktails. One recently that's been a lot of fun is Thai basil flowers. So they've got a ton of aroma and a ton of fragrance to them, and so they'll stick those into a nice craft cocktail. Some of our lavender gets used in craft cocktails. What else are we selling for that? Rosemary. We've got some rosemary flowers that are kind of rare and they're kind of petite and beautiful, and those will go into some cocktails.
Me and Tommy we're constantly talking about, okay, well, we can't go because we can't leave here. We can't, and you can go, but I got to stay. You're always thinking about the animals, whether you can go somewhere or not. As holidays come along, they better come see us because we ain't going there.
There's so many different options as we transition into a more compassionate, clean world. I think that the main thing is everybody needs to grow healthier vegetables, and the local community needs to rally around anybody that's growing these vegetables and pay the premium until these people can get, established.
Have people with you. I used to bawl every time we would have to put one down, and I would put it off too. They could barely walk. And having the volunteers say it's time, and everybody, we get 3 or 4 people together with the veterinarian so that the animal doesn't have to die alone. When they get adopted, it's a happy tears, but it's still emotional, so we support each other, and we'll sit down and talk about the animal, what they did here, and how happy we are for them, to just try and comfort each other.
Before you even start bringing animals in, you need to recruit volunteers. You need to find out what their commitment is, what their abilities are. If somebody works and they can only help out 2 or 3 hours a week, then you may want to put them in the event section. Who's going to transport the pugs, who's going to visit the shelters, who's going to interface with the municipalities.
And there's 2 kinds of volunteers. They're the ones that come and love it and stay, and they're the ones that come and decide this is not for me really and never come back. So the ones that do decide that this is something they want to get involved in and participate in, it's incredible. And the amount of knowledge they can learn, because we do all the procedures here that don't require anesthesia. We set wings and legs and sew them up and do splinting and all kind of interesting things. So you can learn as much as you want to learn, and quite a few of my volunteers that started when they were 13 ended up going to vet school.
My colleagues are pretty much my volunteers out here, and my spouse, of course. He helps a whole lot with a lot of it. But eventually we do want to get to that point of being able to incorporate more individuals.
And you need good volunteers that'll stick with you through thick and thin. And you need a veterinarian partner that'll help you along the way and give you her time on the side. And you need an adoption partner of some sort.
Then you start to seek out volunteers. And by seeking out volunteers is through word of mouth, through your churches, through the community, schools, FFA, 4-H, Any type of organization in a college that needs to have community hours, those are the people you look for, because they're the free help that you can get to help you keep your center going. And if it wasn't for the volunteers, a lot of centers will close because it's just too much work.
So I may get a call asking us if we can take this particular dog, and if we're not set up for it or I don't think it's going to be a good mix, I don't arbitrarily say no. Let me work on that and let me see if I can help network.
Volunteers are the heart and soul of any, I don't care what you're doing, any nonprofit cannot operate without good volunteers at many different levels. And volunteers will come and they will go, and some will stay forever if you're really lucky.
And will it be run by strictly volunteers, or are you going to need paid staff? Here at Fuzzy Friends, just the word volunteer, you can't depend on volunteers. If they get a better offer, they're going to be gone for the weekend. So you have to have some paid staff most of the time. We have found that because we have so many animals, we have to have paid staff. But your volunteers, if you can get some great volunteers on board, oh, volunteers are such a blessing. Yes.
And then we ask people to share. We have the girls do fundraisers at school. We do a lot of different events, but people have always stepped up for us, which is amazing, and we feel very blessed about that.
And so for 2.5 years, we ran completely on volunteers. And then a couple of internships with high school kids and stuff like that. But at the point where we went full commercial and started selling to a lot more restaurants, there became a lot of tasks that needed to happen at a certain time. And at a volunteer level, if you don't come, it's not a problem for me. It's like whenever it's convenient for you, I will appreciate it and I will love it. But if I need to have seeds started every single Monday, or the deliveries have to happen on Tuesdays, that's where it's, for me, it was an employee level. And so we actually converted over 2 of our volunteers into being paid employees.
Volunteers. You know, a lot of people want to volunteer. The hard thing about getting volunteers is not really getting them, it's keeping them. Because everybody's all excited to come volunteer, but once they come, they may not want to keep coming if, you know, because the work's kind of hard. Maybe they're driving an hour to get here. A lot of people do, or even longer.
We've had some volunteers as long as 6 or 7 years, but most of them average a year or 2. And then their kids grow up, something else comes along, they move. So you can't even count on your volunteers normally for long term.
We are a 100% volunteer organization. We do not have any paid positions. We've been in existence 21 years, even though the organization's been doing rescue for 22 years. And we have learned in 21 years that volunteers come and go. So one of the things that we were very careful of is we looked at our volunteers, we looked at their talent and ability, and then we looked at their commitment.
But having staff issues, people quit or leave at critical periods, has been puts a whole lot of stress on the people that are left. So there's always a staffing contingency that most of the time is unseen, unforeseen. And like right in the middle of baby bird season this year, I had 4 people walk out. They were part of a little group, and I kind of saw that one coming, but it was a really bad time of the year to have that happen. But everybody else stepped up and worked extra days and extra hours, and we get through it. We always get through it.
But most of the time, I can usually tell between my clients and the horses, if I'm overwhelmed, what I usually need to do is go out and spend time with the horses even more. Because when I can go out there, typically Blue again, will come and surround me and allow me to stop and think, okay, what's going on? What is she picking up on? And that usually helps me to process through whatever it is that I'm struggling with.
Find some people that are like-minded, that will be all in, because there'll be a lot of volunteers that want to give some time, maybe come and help at an adoption event or come and clean cages a couple of times, but they're not going to be all in. But you need those people too. And you need those checkbook volunteers that really don't want to do anything but want to write you a check. And that's good too.
Because they are very important. They're the backbone. My volunteers are the backbone of this business. And if I didn't have them, and the dedicated ones, then there wouldn't be a Divine Equine. Because you can't run a rescue, you can't run a nonprofit without having the volunteers.
I think you need to be able to become part of I'm not going to call it a rescue group. I think you have a circle of rescue friends, if you will. Although we only support 2 other rescues because they have the same mindset as far as being as selective as we are when their dogs go. I think you need to surround yourself with those people.
You can't do it without a great team, and you don't want to. You really don't. You know, people who go into rescue have a big heart if they go in for the right reasons. If they're going in for finances, they'll quickly find out that there is no money. It's not a way to get rich. But if you go in because you have a big heart, you don't want to be alone doing it. You want to be there with people to celebrate it. The good times, the bad times, you want those people there with you. So, you know, is there an easy way, like a secret way to get good volunteers? No, it's just trial and error.
Because there was no way that I could be out here as the founder. I couldn't be out here every single day. I was out here most of the time, but you have to have paid staff, or we did, because of the number of animals that we had. We had a facility, we were open to the public.
There's a lot of people love animals, and if you're doing the right thing and you're really putting the animals first, I think you will find people that will sponsor you and will have your back.
I had really good experience. 3 years ago when we bought the farm, I started using social media a lot. So I probably do 1 Facebook post a day, and now that Instagram is a lot bigger, we do 2 or 3 Instagram posts a day. And what's happened is we now have thousands and thousands of followers. So people go to our account, they follow, and they like watching our story and our mission. And I've had 2 people in the last 2 days have come and asked for jobs. And then when I said that, we're really kind of staffed up right now, they said, well, can we just volunteer? So really just being able to tell people that what we're open to.
We have some volunteers that have been here with us since the very beginning. And they love us, and they're all about Rowdy Girl. They watched us grow from the very beginning.
And also with volunteers, a lot of times they will be the ones to tell me, Karen, this horse isn't doing as well as they were when I was here last week. Because I'm here every day and it might just seem the same, but they can tell the difference. And they can also say, I think they're hurting too much. Maybe, because I will deny it, I will say, oh, they're going to get better. And emotionally, I'm thinking they're going to get better. But they can be a little bit more objective.
Ideally, it would be all of your donations should go right back into what you're doing. That's not always the case. A lot of the time it gets funneled to administrative costs or to, see, we don't have any of that. Every dollar that comes in here, every penny is accounted for. And it all goes back into either food or labor or medical care. I mean, there's no salaries, I don't get a salary. I mean, there's no administrative fees. So that is just organization to organization, how that would play out.
Definitely having somebody that they can talk to, but rescuer fatigue is so high in the industry, and you have to make decisions all the time that are very difficult and sometimes life or death situations for the animals.
For instance, we're signed up with Dallas County Youth Services for community service hours where kids can come out and help us with the cats, and we don't have a place where they can come to. But they can come out with us when we're at adoptions and clean the litter boxes and hold the kitties and talk to people about cats and play with them.
They're the backbone. My volunteers are the backbone of this business. And if I didn't have them, and the dedicated ones, then there wouldn't be a Divine Equine. Because you can't run a rescue, you can't run a nonprofit without having the volunteers.
We have never gotten a grant. We don't get free dog food. We purchase all of our dog food. I think for anybody that has that kind of compassion, I admire that, but I think that they would need to start off maybe fostering They would need to volunteer.
You know, as much as I love children, I need to be, as a horse rescue, realistic that the fact that they cannot be around a 1,000-pound scared rabbit, which is basically what a rescue horse is. So when parents say, oh, my 5-year-old loves horses and wants to volunteer, I appreciate that they're the future generation, but I cannot take that chance with the animal or with the child.
You're probably not going to be able to afford a staff. If you're lucky, you get an endowment, you pay a staff, that's great, but you have to be careful because money runs out.
If I thought that staff member, if the money was going to be well spent in whatever I'm spending it on, that's really important to me. You know, there are upsides and downsides to paid staff. You know, the upside is there's a sense of responsibility where the person has to be there and have set things done, and they are responsible to you.
In the beginning, I had people that just kept saying, we want to come over to your farm. We want to just come check out your farm. And in my head, I was like, my farm is a mess. You know, like it doesn't look good. And I've got, you know, we weren't even barely growing enough lettuce and, you know, stuff at the time when we first got started for our family, let alone to like sell to anybody. It was just like experimenting. So I was a little self-conscious and embarrassed. And finally, I kind of had to get over myself and start having people out. And people just started saying, can we help? And I was open to letting people help me. So I said, yeah, come over on Saturday, come over on Tuesday. When can you come? And some of the aquaponics meetup groups that I went to, I met people that said, you know, we would love to come help.
We've started doing, you know, volunteer work days where we bring a bunch of people out. And it's a lot of fun because, you know, we can have all these different projects staged, you know, so there's all these different things to do with everybody helping, and we get a vegan food truck and bring them out, and we had a really, really good time at our last one. And
we haven't had to hire people to come out and do things. It's me and my colleagues because it's our passion and it's what we love to do.
I feel like we're really lucky that we do have a core group of about 4 of our senior volunteers that I know that I could call them at 3 o'clock in the morning and wake them and get them out of bed to come out and help me with the cat, or that they know they could call me.
It takes a lot out of the person. You have to have the volunteers. If you don't have the volunteers, you'll be overwhelmed. You'll be sick. You drink a lot of vitamin C. Make sure your stamina, get plenty of sleep. Don't stay up all night wondering how to make tomorrow happen. Just know that you did a good job that day and you did the best you could. To have a facility run smoothly, you do need a staff, whether it's volunteer or pay. Ideally, I want this place to run smoothly like any other organization, and it requires people. And to have volunteers, well, if they don't feel good, they may not show up. Versus if you have a paid staff, well, they don't show up, maybe they don't get paid. So, but you also want to have a staff that wants to be here because of the reason you're doing the facility. What is the main purpose for them to be here?
Rescue to rescue, and other rescues will reach out to us and say, can you take on this particular dog? And if we have room and it's a rescue to rescue, we will make room for that dog. And it's with the understanding it's not going to be a long term. We're all going to help to network these dogs to get them out.
I've kind of always taken pride in the fact that none of us are paid, but it's hard. You know, I mean, it's really hard. It'd be nice. I always say, I'd like to be paid, but you know, that's not why I went into it. So it would just really depend on the person, their salary expectations, and our financial well-being at the time. And our needs. Like, do I need a full-time person? If I don't need someone, you know, because I have a great team, then I'm not going to waste the money on it. I'm just not. So far, I've been lucky I haven't had to.
Volunteers are the lifeblood of this rescue. Without our help every Saturday to get the barn completely done, we would get so behind schedule we could never keep up. Realistically, it's going to be really hard. It's hard to find somebody who's in it for the right reasons, who's going to accept the amount of pay you're able to afford. But yeah, it would be nice. It would be fantastic to be able to count on someone to be here at 9 o'clock every morning.
Who can I find that knows how to do the plumbing? Who knows how to do the wiring? And then who's plant people? I wasn't a farmer. I'd never even had to raise beds, so I had to go join. I became a master gardener and started hanging out with 50 or 100 people in my community that know how to garden. And so I said, hey, can you guys come help me grow tomatoes? And what, what is this bug? What does this leaf mean? And I had a group of people I could ask about. And the more I asked questions and the more I asked for help, the more people came in turn gave us help.
But when we started branching off into doing things we didn't normally do, I knew we needed, volunteers and help. So, and I knew I needed an employee when I couldn't just rely on a volunteer, when I needed to know that this person was going to be here every day, 8 to 5. I started coming into the office more. I was able to delegate more some of the things to take care of the animals to volunteers. And I'll never forget when we got to get our first employee, and that's Kate.
So you can't really rely on donations all the time. You can't live without them, but you have to be able to financially float it a little bit by yourself.
In rescue, there are two major challenges. One is finding volunteers that are dedicated to work the organization. And the second challenge is how do you get funds? We are always 100% fundraising. Everywhere we go, we're always fundraising.
And I have hired grant writers in the past, and you can send out 10 or 20 grants and get nothing. So just because you send it in doesn't mean they're going to give it to you. We've had to deal with the contingency of running out of money many, many times, of being out of money, of having too many creatures to, I won't say tend to effectively, but stretched us very, very thin. Everybody that comes in here gets the best care we can give them, and nobody suffers from heat or cold or lack of care or lack of attention or any of those things.
We have a really good donor base, and it's always interesting to watch because sometimes somebody will donate quite a bit to begin with and it'll last for what we need it for. And then we may have somebody else that kind of steps in. And that's where social media comes in, is because we never know who sees our post. If we put something out there that we've got this going on and we're trying to fundraise for that, then we may wind up with some of the same donors we've had before, and we may get to meet some new people along the way.
Beg. These days, Facebook is a big help. Getting videos out there, getting pictures out there, and we've put some really graphic stuff out there with warnings, but people see that and they want to help. They see the kitty with the leg dangling and they want to help us raise the money to amputate it or to get it fixed, or they see the cat with the horrible eye and they want to help us.
Most grant writers want a percentage, or they want a nice amount of money, because it takes a lot of work to do a grant, to set it up. But once you get the blueprint, then you can just blueprint that to each grant, and it's not as tough, but it's not a guarantee you're going to get the money, because there's so many people out there wanting that same dollar.
People need to believe that you're sincere. I think we invite people out here to see our rescue and how it is that we run our rescue, and I think that's why we have the support that we do.
So many people think that if I start a rescue and I say I need donations, they're going to pour in. Well, that's not the way it works. You have to prove yourself. You have to show that the organization is trustworthy. You have to show that you've got good intentions, that you've got a way of spending the donations that is appropriate and efficient and effective.
We'll do some fundraisers will take animals. I'll take animals to other locations. We try to get donations there to varying degrees.
Sometimes you're going to get lucky and you're going to apply for a grant and you're going to get it right off the bat. Sometimes you're going to have to write out 10 grants to get one, and it might only be $500, which, fantastic. Money runs out. You're going to have to constantly be after that money.
But as the demand and the word spread about Fussy Friends Rescue, and people needing to bring their animals out here, wanting to save more animals from our city shelter, then our budget began to grow. Also, our donor base began to grow. Because as word spread about the good work that we were doing, we had a proven track record.
We've had a lot of special needs cases that have, could have definitely put us in the red, could have put us under, but we've just never, when we've gotten in trouble, not in trouble, that's the wrong word, when we've gotten something very challenging that could definitely have depleted our funds, we've been very blessed with people coming through.
And I also think that there's opportunity for sponsorships. Can you find local businesses, whether it's a farm or, like I would love to work, if there was an animal sanctuary here, I would donate a ton of our greens. There's a lot of stuff that we just peel off because we're not sending it to the chefs. We could work with someone who is nearby. If they came by and made it easy for us, we could donate food for their animals.
I said, all right, well, so what would you sell them to your wife for? I had to pull out the wife card, and he said, all right, Renee, I'll sell them to you for 30. I said, all right. So I went on crowdfunding. I created a Indiegogo campaign, and I raised $36,000 in less than 4 months, and I bought my husband's cows. That's how I started. Not everybody's going to be able to do that. So what are you going to do to raise money? You have to be able to do that, And so that's completely up to you. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what I did. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself because I can't tell you how to raise the money. You have to get creative.
We do a lot of fundraisers. That does help, like golf tournaments. We're having a casino night. We've had chili cook-offs, and all those are labor intensive. So it's better to do it with a group that will be willing to do this.
We're always having fundraising events. We try to have 2 major events for us. We have one in the spring, and then we have one in the fall, the Halloween event and the Valentine's event. And then in between, we have different fundraisers. For example, during Christmas time, we have what we call Photos with Santa or Photos with Grinch.
When you don't have to worry every single day where the next dollar's coming from. When you have enough of a padding that's not the forefront of every single thought you have, which that is so exhausting when that's the case, and I was there for a very long time. And when you have that little bit of padding where you're not going to have to worry about, oh my God, can we make it to Friday?
A lot of times what will happen is if people go out there and they are asking for money over and over again, people quit giving. And so we've worked with our fundraising to be able to offer, like our most recent fundraiser was an art fundraiser.
Recently we learned that a gentleman we helped 5 years ago passed away and left us a large check. I was like, oh. So we've gotten some good luck along the way. And
I would love to have a staff of volunteer coordinator, equine manager, an office manager, someone to run me, tell me where I'm supposed to be next, an instructor for my instructors. I need a manager to make sure that they're following the guidelines that PATH instills on us. So in order to have that, you do need funding, and you need to reach out to the corporate world for sponsorships.
You need to be able to negotiate special pricing on everything. I'm the queen of Google. They'll tell you if you want something, I'll find it for you. I'm the fixer. I'll find a solution for something. So you need to be able to negotiate everything.
Writing grants is an art. It is not easy. It is not fast. It takes experience. Now you can be super lucky and you can whip out a grant and God willing you win it. But there are people out there who will write grants. There are a lot of people who would would tell you that they can help you get grants. You have to be careful. Do your research on them as well. Don't pay anyone just because they promise you that they could get you a grant. If they promise you, then that's going to be suspect anyway. There's no way to promise a grant.
I'm involved in the gala that we have annually, and organizing that and then participating in it. So I've been involved with that. I'm not great at begging for dollars or cold calling, and that's really not my thing.
And to get those things requires more time. You're going to need to make sure that you have the time to sit down and devote to building funds and building a network of people to get funds on your behalf.
The demand for the grant money that's out there available, the demand is so terrific. Don't rely on grants to support yourself. You're going to be very disappointed. I will just tell you, the available money out there for animal causes is very, very low on the totem pole.
We've actually thought about applying for some grants because I know there's a lot of them out there, but we're looking for some. We have one lady that has written grants before, but that's almost a full-time job, and so I think someone with a sanctuary would probably, need a sponsor or keep a facility going, or some big kind company grants and things like that.
We'll do occasional tours to the public. It's at least quarterly, sometimes a little bit more often than that. We'll do a once a year free tour, and we'll kind of cap that. I think last year we did 100 people. And the biggest reason we don't do them more often is because of biosecurity. Every time someone comes into the greenhouse, you're risking bringing in pests or pathogens and that kind of thing.
You need to have memberships. We have a membership program, and we have a Adopt an Animal sponsorship program. Other ways for the sanctuary to make money.
We do a lot of fundraisers. That does help, like golf tournaments. We're having a casino night. We've had chili cook-offs, and all those are labor intensive. So it's better to do it with a group that will be willing to do this.
We're always filling out paperwork for grants. We're always doing different fundraisers with different organizations. For example, a large airline that's based here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area has what they call a Christmas tree. And once a year they ask us, what do you want, what do you need this year?
Don't let your heart get ahead of your mind and your checkbook. But keep that passion, because if you don't have that, you have nothing. Because you have to have that to push through all of these problems that you're going to incur. But if you have the mind to do that, and that is, you're bound and determined, and you're the kind of person that can make it happen no matter what you have to do, you'll find a way. If that's how you are, go for it.
I reached out to artists through the social media, through Facebook, through Twitter, and contacted several of them and just asked if they would consider donating to our rescue. I had already been online for several years, and so I've built up a reputation and have plenty of pictures showing what we do. And by doing that, I've had a lot of the artists donate really amazing pieces that we were actually able to fundraise through.
I've always felt like we should work in concert with other rescue people, because after all, we're all here for the same reason. And I don't understand why everybody doesn't think that way, but they don't.
I think anybody that goes into rescue that thinks they're going to make money off of that, I think those people really need to step back and spend some time with other rescues, because we never make a dime on any single dog, ever.
There are grants out there. You have to be diligent, and you have to look, and you have to understand the deadlines, and you have to be super organized, and I will be the first to tell you I am not. So I rely a lot on my team. Do we do all we can for grants? Not even close. Not even a fraction of where we could be going.
A raffle. A nonprofit's going to have 2 raffles a year, and a raffle is a great way to raise some money. You get the raffle item or items donated, and then you get your sales team, your board of directors, your volunteers, your friends, and you begin to sell your raffle tickets.
We have 2 major events a year. We have our walkathon, which this year I think is going to be April the 30th, the last Saturday in April. And last year we raised $21,000 for our shelter pets because we've had a lot of vet bills. So we provide all shots, all medical care, everything is done through our rescue. Our second large event is the Pet Fair at Trinity High School the last Saturday in September. And we have low-cost vaccinations, we have microchipping, a lot of vendors, food. It's a really fun time.
I really think for animal sanctuaries, part of the key is going to be running with volunteers, because I think with animal sanctuaries, people are so passionate, and animals is one of the things that lights people up the most. So I think if you could cut out your labor cost on a lot of your projects and really work with interns, volunteers, and potentially school-age kids, I think a lot of the key is going to be agritourism and really having people out to your farm on a regular basis.
I'm one of these people that believes that when you have a real strong intention, like 100%, not 99.9, I mean 101, better if it's 101%, that you're gonna attract the resources you need. It's like if I'm having an idea, somebody else is just waiting to fulfill that, but only if I have 100% full-on faith.
Somebody that likes to do fundraisers, I would love to have a grant writer. I don't, but if I did, I think that would really help us. And then
we also sell items. For example, we sell pug-related items. We sell t-shirts, keychains, magnets.
We actually had an open house here, so we had some people that came, got to meet the Mustangs, got to see the facility, and some of them purchased items, as well as people that were online, because we have followers from all the way from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast.
There are thousands and thousands of groups competing for the same grant money. And work on that first before you get too far in. If that's how you're intending to fund your organization, then work on your grants first.
We don't even have set adoption fees. We ask for a donation, and by asking for the donation, it has always, again, we've been blessed beyond measure with the donations. People have always been very, very generous with us.
If you decide to go in and pursue grants, just carve out some time, be realistic, and again, go back to your mission statement. Can you do it without it? Do you want to try? Do you want to give it a try for a year? The big guys get most of the grants. They just do. They've got a team of grant writers. They've got an organization behind them that can do not only grant writing, but can do the press ops, the photography, all the things that go along with it. So, give it a go. Try everything.
A lot of people want to help you. They want to donate, towels, dog food, laundry detergent, money, but they don't know what you need. So social media is critical, and getting your local media involved, your newspaper, have them do a story about you. Get the TV stations, yeah.
They just want to come and connect with nature. And so I think a key is not being afraid to charge people a little bit so you can make sure that you cover your expenses. If it costs you money to operate, you have to charge money to have people come out. And I think that if you could get groups of people coming out multiple times per weekend, or several times throughout the week, I think that could be a huge key.
Well, that's the $1,000,000 question. What do you do to raise money? I can tell you what I did. I can tell you that I was so determined that I told my husband, I said, if you're going to sell all these cows, he was going to sell all of them. He was going to get out of the business. I said, why don't you just sell them to me? And he said, sell them to you? Have you lost your mind, Renee? I said, yes, I have. I've lost that mind. I've got a new one. Now you're dealing with this one, and I want to buy your cows.
Corporate sponsorship is an area that is not tapped enough. And for example, we would love to have more corporate sponsors, but we need to go out and seek them. We need to go out and find the companies that do support rescue organizations.
We've had so many people that have come out to the sanctuary just to be able to see how we're running things before they actually even offer to donate. And it's one of those things that you need to be able to be as open with the public as you can be in order for them to see that you're doing what you say you're doing. Because if they come and you're not, then they're not going to support you.
You know, and I know there's grants out there, they're very competitive, and we've applied for some and have never gotten any, so maybe hiring somebody that could at least coach us through doing one would be well worth the investment if that panned out down the road, that we were able to get more grant money to help cover cost.
The profits that we have, or a portion of the profits, go to support our rescue. You know, that's a good marketing tool. People are going to reach out to have those types of service because, you know, animals tug at everybody's hearts. So I think that's a good business plan if you can actually do that.
You think that, hey, if I put this online, everybody's going to donate $10 to me and I will have $100,000 a month. Well, we do that. We've done that 20 years. You don't just walk out the door unless for some reason you've got some amazing special talent. And, you know, if you do, God bless you.
First of all, you always have to go with what are you allowed to do in the municipality? What are you allowed to do where your land is located? You have to make sure it's not going to impact the animals. That's the biggest thing. You don't want to harm the animals. So if it's a certain type of business that is either going to have either noise pollution, if it's air pollution, something that's going to be upsetting to them, you can't do it.
Well, you've got to figure out how are you going to generate your income. You know, for us, we are event supported. Unfortunately, it's a precarious situation to be in, but we are event supported even today, 20 years later. So yes, you need to go ahead and sit down with your board, your volunteers, or your key people, your board of directors, and realize, okay, what can we do? And you can have many small events.
What we hope Mutt Shack will be is a successful business that works as partnership with Trinity Gap Rescue, and so that we can help the rescue and promote the rescue and also promote our business, because I think that it's good for both of us.
And what we found is that was lacking is a relationship between chefs and farmers. Very high-end chefs want specific, size, plants, specific things that they cannot get from the food distributors. So when I kind of got into it, we figured out very quickly that these chefs that are particular don't have anyone servicing them in the Dallas area.
You got to think of unique programs that are unique to just your organization. We have two that are very unique in that one of them is the Rancher Advocacy Program, and then the other one is Families Choosing Compassion. And the Rancher Advocacy Program is very needed, no one else is doing.
People in the United States, they're getting unhealthier everywhere. The environment's going down, and I started putting two and two together and going, well, it's hard to be on the leading edge of change.
It would be wonderful to have a private company that can make money and do that. We built this event center hoping to let the overflow profit go into the horse rescue. Hasn't taken off yet, but that's our goal, is to have something making money to donate. Oh, a tax store would do well here, a feed store, an exotic animal store. There's a lot of people that have told me they would love to see places to buy food for their lizards and iguanas and snakes. So those kind of small businesses would work. We've thought about putting paintball in the backyard, anything like that where it's outdoor, renting out some of the stalls for people traveling with their horses could be a business for somebody.
You could have the sanctuary selling items, and then at that point you could start an online mail service. This way you could mail items worldwide. The beauty of our times that we live in right now is that the internet is in existence.
If you could find a for-profit organization that melded with what you were doing and had the same philosophies and the same policies on things, that would be ideal. And even if they could on some level give you financial support, either in terms of goods or services or things that you would ordinarily have to spend money on.
It would really depend on what type of business they're looking at and being able to incorporate it. Again, so much of it has to do with the networking. As a counselor, it's easy for me because the people that we have come in and actually get to interact with the animals see how it works, and they may tell a friend or a relative about us, and then that can actually bring in donations as well.
I think it would have to be a garden, vegetables to support the community. We have chickens, so we give eggs to our volunteers, and we give eggs to our riders' parents because they're low income. We're trying to do a vegetable garden for them so they can have veggies in the summers. That's probably what I would do.
Hey, I notice you have a giraffe rescue, but you also sell candles to make money for the rescue. That's, perfectly acceptable way of doing it. But just make sure that your funds are accounted for, your time is accounted for, and is candle making going to take up more time than giraffe rescue? And if it is, are you going to be effective at either one? So, I know of a lot of rescues that do things, not just rescues, a lot of charities that do other things to bring in income. We all have to survive. I understand that there's different ways of bringing in income. Just do your research, talk to a good accountant, and again, talk to the community.
I know we examined that very idea years ago, how to sustain our work on an annual basis. And we did a feasibility study and got an architect. Actually, he drew up the plans. It was a beautiful boarding facility out front on our property close to the airport, because we're right by the airport. But we did the numbers and it just didn't work for us.
I think training would, because a lot of people want their dogs trained, and in that training you could help a lot of rescue dogs that have needs, have socialization needs. So I think that a training business would be an excellent business to start with a rescue facility. And also our business, Mutt Shack, we do doggy daycare. We also do training here, and we've been able to utilize that with helping some of the dogs with dogs that we're training with, and help them get socialized.
If you are wanting to open a business on your land, a sanctuary for the animals, I've given that some thought, and obviously you can grow food. You can do that. And that's something that is really needed, but you've got to be able to, know what kind of food you can grow on your particular soil. You got to have people that can take care of the soil and the plants. You got to make sure it's taken care of.
Am I going to try and help a struggling rescue with some ideas? Yeah, that's why I'm doing this. I do believe that we owe it to each other to work as a community, as a team.
Those strategic partnerships on, getting your costs down, whether you're getting your land donated, you can get some of your feed cost offset by using scraps from restaurants, or, and then getting your labor for free by basically working off interns and volunteers. I think that would be the three of the biggest key things to starting a sustainable animal sanctuary.
You've got to stay emotionally strong. You can't do it on your own power. Yeah, you got to get a thick skin, but then you got to get a higher power. You got to have one. For me, I do.
The emotional expense is very difficult. As a therapist, luckily I have been able to learn my own limitations on when I need to take a break, and I have people that can fill in for me.
That's a concern, and it depends on where you are, and that's a whole nother thing, is where do you set this show up,
You're most likely to fail if you don't build up your support system. Your volunteers, someone you can confide in, that you can have that conversation about how much you hate this and how much you love it at the same time. If you don't have some sort of emotional support, you'll burn out very quickly and you won't be able to do this.
Well, I hate seeing them sad, depressed. They hang their heads and you know they want to have peppermint or carrot. They want to be rubbed and scratched, and because there's places they can't reach.
Our form of advertising is, since we don't do adoption events, is we every day the dogs write a post and they speak like they are, and so they tell you a little bit about their story.
I think I try to be realistic and say to people, if you love animals, there are lots of things you can do with your life. And if you're not emotionally prepared to go down the path of rescue and see what's down that path, explore other options.
And say, well, how can I tell if my horse is content? How can I tell if my goat is content and are happy and being cared for, and this is the appropriate environment for them?
You know, there's studies constantly that will tell you that a dog is happy when its ears are up and its tail's wagging. There are also people who will tell you that when a dog's perked up in its ears, it's watching something or it's anxious. You know, and a horse, their ears are back, they're angry. Well, maybe they're just listening.
You have to pick and choose who you're going to save, because when you make the wrong decision, if you're a rescue and not a sanctuary, and you fill up with animals that nobody wants to adopt, then how many animals are dying every day for that one spot that you have an animal that's not adoptable?
I'm a big fan of harnessing the sun's power versus LEDs. I think that in the future, as LED prices come down, it's going to make a lot more sense to grow some products with LEDs. But as much as we can use the sun, the better.
It took a lot of different transitional periods for me to go vegan.
But if their quality of life goes down, that's a really hard decision and I have to make it. And some of them, like major surgery, we know we don't have $6,000 for a colic surgery.
We have all kinds of birds, ranging from little tiny sparrows, and we do not discriminate. A lot of the times, rehabbers won't do grackles or pigeons or sparrows because they're not sexy birds, they're not the glamorous birds. We do everything that comes through the door.
We've seen so many situations where there have been 20, 30, 50 horses that have had to be removed from a rescue because they start starving. They can't keep up with it.
If you just want to be the home for old dogs on 12 acres, then understand that you have a finite number of resources. So make your game plan of how you're going to support the animals that are otherwise unadoptable.
When you're on the horse for that hour to 2 hours, you're not thinking about your bills. You're not thinking about your wife. You're not thinking about stressful yard work. You're not thinking about all of the things that has taken place in your past that has caused your anxiety level. You're thinking about you and that horse.
If you negotiate and you work with somebody that's a rescue vet, they do discount your charges phenomenally, which allows us to do what we do.
Should you have insurance? Do you want to keep your rescue? That's it. That's the bottom line. You can't cut corners on things like that.
I hate to say this, but it's really, you have to look at it as a business because it is a business. It's a non-profit business. And you've got to look at the animals, and people will, oh my goodness, as inventory. Okay? So if you're a sanctuary, they can live there forever. But if you're a rescue and you want them to be adopted, your adoption agency, then, you know, are you going to take an 8-month-old cat or an 18-year-old cat? You only have one spot. Which one are you going to take?
And it's very important that I stay connected to a power greater than myself. And that's the only way I can keep going. I know this isn't about me. You know, this is coming through me for the animals. Because when I went vegan, everything else that I thought I wanted to do in my life paled in comparison.
And it's also very important that the city that you're in doesn't have restrictions or any kind of a code that would at some point cause you problems. We're in an unincorporated area, obviously, so we have none of that, which is immensely relieving because you just don't have to worry about that. But these things are noisy, especially when you get large numbers of them. I don't care what it is, they're loud, and if you have neighbors, that's going to be a problem. So there's all kind of little things that you have to be mindful of. You know, if they have a code that you can only have so many creatures on your property, or so many per acre, or whatever that might be, you can get in trouble in a hurry.
We do not get them straight from the BLM. Some people prefer to do that, but we are on the tail end of it. We say from auction when possible, or owner surrender, but a lot of them have come from the kill pens.
If you're not willing to make some sacrifices of your time, not just your money, but your time and your attention, then you will not be successful.
What these animals are doing is giving them a center and giving them a peace. Because I'm not talking about a place when I say center. I say center is where we all need to go, is when we start feeling better, is to center ourselves. And that's what these animals do.
I think more people need to consider taking at least one more dog in their home. I think people need to stop buying dogs. I think people need to visit the shelters. I think we need to be aware of the seniors that have their pets, and when they pass away, people are not making allowances for those.
And will you find that angel? I hope so. I hope everybody does. Sometimes it's not just one angel. Sometimes it's an army of little angels, and that's okay too.
But they communicate all the time, and they just simply have their own language, and most of it is nonverbal. But once you learn it, you know exactly what they're thinking and exactly how they're doing. It's very clear.
We've got some here that are perfectly happy to be left alone with their buddies in the back pasture and not be touched. They're happy to just stand and eat the grass and eat the hay and walk around with their friends and enjoy the sunlight.
We don't believe that a skin injury or an eye injury or a broken leg or kennel cough or heartworms should be a death sentence.
I guess that's when I really started transitioning, is when I started realizing that these animals, these babies that were with their mothers for 6 months, were going to be slaughtered.
And what if I'm physically not able to? Then we have to coordinate with other rescues, so my board has instructions on who to contact. Those kind of things have to be in place too.
We could have a whole lot more horses in small pens if we chose to do that, but that's just surviving, that's not living. And so when we incorporate them, we try to make sure that we have our maximum number that the field can sustain and that their herd dynamics is appropriate.
But a happy cat, when they're walking towards you, they have their tail up in the air like a little antenna. And they just have a real relaxed movement to them.
They do like it when they have a job. Even dogs like it when they have a job. I think cats do too, but they have their own mindset. But as far as our horses, they like it when they come inside. You can see them say, "Oh, it's my turn to come inside. It's my turn to be with someone. I get to be with my friends." So you can tell when they're by themselves, they want somebody else with them.
You know, the average person, you know, they get up and they go to work and they come home and they may do some chores and then they sit down and watch television. That's kind of a luxury in order for us in order to do that, but we wouldn't change it for the world, because at the end of the day, when you look at all these little heartbeats that are running around this house and how much they can give, you could have bad news. You could go and sit in the dog room in the middle of the floor and you'll get so much unconditional love. And you met all the dogs that are outside there, Rottweilers, Pit Bulls, you name them, they're out there. They're just happy.
You know, I hope that we'll streamline things more. People will learn to be less competitive and more cooperative. I think if we learn to work together instead of against each other, whether it's a guinea pig rescue and a horse rescue and a giraffe rescue doing an event together, are you all rescues? Yes, but you have different audiences. So, learn to partner, learn to work together, learn to be in it for the right reasons.
Rescuing animals is rough. We get animals in sometimes that we know all we can do is make comfortable and they're going to pass. We have to make that decision and be able to live with it. Sometimes it's easier than others because we know we're ending pain. Sometimes it's unexpected and you cry for days. You have to be prepared for the roller coaster.
An endowment fund is the way to secure the future of any nonprofit. And we as a board of directors, our board decided years ago we had to do an endowment fund. We are blessed here in Waco to have the Waco Foundation, and we have set up an endowment fund through them. And we know going forward that if we can raise the money, and we have an endowment campaign going on, but an endowment to secure the future, as long as there's a forever, we want to be here.
And our story blew up, man. It just was everywhere. And then everybody starts calling. You got to be ready for the press, and you got to be sure that you aren't afraid of the press, and you got to continue to do it over and over and over and over.
I know a lot of rescues that have veterinarians on their board. I know one veterinarian that co-runs a rescue, and that's wonderful. It saves them a lot of money, but it's difficult to get. I'm fortunate in that I'm a registered nurse, and so I can do a whole lot of the medical stuff, and the vet's very good about letting me talk to him on the phone.
They're taking Mustangs and working with veterans that have been damaged through their process and have PTSD. So you have these wounded Mustangs and these wounded veterans coming together and learning how to reconnect and trust. And it's a really exciting experience for him to be able to go out there and do that.
They need human interaction too, so if you're just going to stick a cat house out in the back and not interact with them at all, then yeah, they'll probably be physically okay, but they aren't going to be kitties that are going to be really good for adoptions because they aren't going to interact with people much.
I've had several soldiers that have been on 19 bottles of medication that have said the horses have taken them down to where they're on 6 bottles of medication. And if it wasn't for them coming here and being with the horses, they don't know where they would be, because this gives them an outlet to where they feel they have a place to go with no judgments. The horse does not judge. We don't judge. We leave their disability in their car.
We're in a lot of people's wills that if something happens to them, the animals are going to come here, and we prepared for that. They've reached out to us, and so we are lining ourselves up in order to do that.
The future would be amazing if none of us had jobs. If there was no need in 20 years for rescues of any kind. If we've been able to progress as a society, as a world, to the point where overbreeding and abuse and, ignorance basically is a thing of the past. That would be my ideal future.
I don't know. I believe they go to a better place just like we do. But I've not interacted with them here in their spirit. But I have seen things that remind me of them. I'll see a new horse that's just come in that, oh my goodness, so-and-so used to do that.
But we are doing God's work, no question about it. And we also, I will tell you, for every single animal that gets adopted from Fuzzy Friends Rescue or any organization, there are peoples whose lives are being blessed. It is celebrating the human-animal bond. We're in this together, and we need to help each other out.
That's one of our programs that we're working on right now, and I'm working on with 2 other organizations, and we're forming a coalition to actually help ranchers make the switch. And we're going to have business models. We're going to be teaching them, what can they do instead, because I don't want anybody to have to do it the way we did it. I have a heart for helping rancher families, and the reason why I want to do it is because they've started contacting me. There's a lot of people out there not wanting to kill their animals. that have ranches. They love their animals, but they kill them too because it's a lifelong business. They've been in it for generations. They don't know that they can do it any different.
And you need an exit strategy either way. And what would happen if I got hit by a car tomorrow? I have a life insurance policy that goes with the horses to whatever rescue, so that they will have a way to sustain them.
You really have to be able to take care of your family, you have to be able to take care of your work, and then you have to work on taking care of the rescue. And you can't let the rescue take over in the other areas either, because then you're not taking care of yourself.
I keep wishing every year that people would put me out of business by spaying and neutering and not having cats and dogs running around everywhere. Ultimately, I don't want to be in business. I want to be put out of business because I don't have to be here. I don't have to save cats from going to shelters or being loose on the streets because they'll all be wanted and in a home.
We tend to them all the time and we play with them and we get angry with them, and then when they get sick, the bills are expensive, and but when the vet finally says this is it, you've got to put them down, then you cry a lot. You do.
Well, our rescue actually is set up. Our rescue will continue. We have made allowances that every dog that we have out here will be provided for until the end of their life. Not bringing on any new ones, but we've made, because these are the ones that we've made a commitment for. And so we have people already lined up, the commitment, everything's been drawn up through our attorney.
It is not easy. Don't do this if you're expecting it to be easy. Or if you're thinking, all the animals are nice, I love the animals. But you're going to be challenged to your nth degree. This is the hardest thing I've ever done.
I think more networking is going on, is what I'm seeing. So even the small rescues are getting resources by being a member of another coalition. I know there's several for horses, and the Global Federation for Animal Sanctuaries does every kind of animal. And so getting resources, having conferences, having grant writing, webinars, that will help sustain the smaller rescue that doesn't have the finances to get a grant writer or a director.
We actually have a very large community on Facebook for Mustang rescue specific people. And so there's about 5 other rescues that I actually work with that if I can't take one, we refer over to another rescue that's able to help with them.
We're working on some succession planning because I would like to know that there's still people interested and want to continue it if I was not around. I don't have any intention of going anywhere, of course, but we've got a couple of younger folks that have really shown a lot of interest in getting involved in the actual nuts and bolts of running it as a company, and hope that they'll continue on, and hope to keep attracting young people that want to keep it going.
We do want the center to continue even when I'm old and can't do it anymore. We're not doing this just to have it as our own. We're wanting it to be a community-based center where it has grown to the point where we are looking at making this a permanent location for the Divine Equine, and making it to where if I do decide to have someone come in and we have the money to bring people in, I can step out of the position I'm in.
When I leave this world, I want to be able to have that Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is a legacy for future generations, for other animals, that other ranches are going vegan, that it's normal. I want to see that. I want to see that day. I get goosebumps thinking about it because I know it's going to happen. I know it's going to be normal one day, that ranches are going to change and go vegan.
The perfect sanctuary wouldn't exist because people would take responsibility and take care of their own animals. And they would stop breeding just because they're going to have the next champion racehorse or dog or whatever. They would get rid of the good old boy mentality of letting their dogs not be neutered.
very appreciative of having this opportunity to be able to show the sanctuary for what it is and what it's becoming. And I hope that in the long run, we're able to help a whole lot more horses and help other rescues as well to be able to make sure that they can make this work for them, because we've just seen so many that have not worked for one reason or another, and the animals are the ones that suffer for it. So I'm very thankful that this is an opportunity for them to be able to learn.
Failing is just not in my vocabulary. I never even asked myself that question. I'm staying the course. I put one foot in front of the other, and this is for the animals. You know, how dare I even think about it? You know, I have to stay for them. I have to do this. But when they pass away, first time I lost an animal, I thought I'd never get over it. I thought I would just never get over it.
When the time comes that we have to put them down, we have an arrangement. If it's a large dog, we never discuss it in front of the animals because we feel that the animals are very intelligent. So the deal is we pull up and I drive an SUV and they come out and give a tranquilizer, and we drive the dog around until the tranquilizer takes effect, and then we take them in, and we always stay with our dogs through the end. All of our dogs are cremated, we have their ashes, and we'll all be together in the end.